done a lot of work. We've done lobbying. There is still some pockets in the House that are saying that we have not lobbied sufficiently. But I want to tell you, Michael, that all the speakers, maybe save for 2 members of parliament that spoke to this bill when it was moved for the second time, did support the bill, and they had very good reasons that they were floating. And unless there is dishonesty and not being able to say the same thing at the same time or being able to walk the talk, I think that the bill should actually pass.
Although that doesn't sound like somebody is very confident that it's going to pass. You sound like you're almost hoping that it's going to pass, as opposed to knowing that...
You know, until the vote is cast, I mean, I can't sit here and say it's 100%. I'm saying we've done what we need to do to have this bill pass. And indeed, this is the last end of this bill, because if we do not move to the 3rd stage, we are doing the 2nd stage, and we are supposed to be voting for the 2nd stage, hopefully tomorrow. Of course, strategically, if the mover, who is Honorable Duare, because it's a government bill, and I hate the fact that people are thinking it's a women bill. This is a gender bill brought by the leader of majority, who is the government person that moves always bills that are by the government, and therefore we expect that it's really not. It's, you know, we must correct the name that it is supposed to be. It's a bill that is brought by the government, because the government has a constitutional mandate to ensure that what Kenyans put in the constitution, what we legislated in the constitution and said we need to have adequate quotas for either gender, should actually be in the constitution. So yes, I am confident that we should actually get the numbers. We need 233. We know there is resistance. It's good to say that we know there is resistance. But if actually the political parties that lead in the House in terms of numbers put their weight unreservedly, unequivocally,
then it should go through.
Then we should go through.
Okay.
Indeed, if we fail, the government shall have failed in this bill. Why? Because before, the government has whipped, has lobbied for successful bills, for ensuring that they get the necessary numbers, and not very far ago. Of course, you will always get 1 or 2 several members that do not agree with what maybe the government is saying, because we are saying it's a government bill. Why should it
I mean,
fail?
we've seen the government, when they need to have something passed, they have a way of doing it. If we look at, for instance, the VAT added on petroleum products, there was quite a number of members of parliament who were not for it. However, it still found its way.
There was there is twisting, there is lobbying, there is personal one-on-one call,
horse trading,
agreements, you know, basically, and also PGs are always called. When there is a crisis, that there is a possibility that a bill like this or any other bill that the government puts its weight and feels that it must pass, what normally does is that a PG would be called. The last VAT question, the bill, both political parties, the key ones, you know, who have the largest majority, indeed, the Jubilee and the ODM, have enough numbers with their affiliates, numbers.
They can get it done if they
And
really
we have seen the Right Honorable Raila Odinga as the people who have taken the torch to, you know, led by our Kewopa chair, the Minister for Public Service and Gender and Youth, Professor Margaret Kobia. We have seen Honorable Kalonzo, you have seen us doing that. And all of them, we have seen His Excellency the President, and we have seen the Deputy President, and we have also seen a money leader, the Honorable Mudavadi. And all of them have...
They've been positive on...
not positive. They have told us, and we take their word to be true.
Okay.
They have told us they will support and they will whip their members. Indeed, we requested that they call the PGs, and and you know, you have heard them publicly.
Okay, allow me to bring in Honorable Nyamunga. On your thoughts on this, are you also as confident as Honorable Alice Wahome that the time is up and it is going to pass?
Yes, I would say that I'm very confident, taking into account what Honorable Wahome has already alluded to. But you know, there's a time when you sit with members as a group, But when when now you have a one-on-one with them, you can see reservations. So that is what is really worrying me. And the fact that normally if there is a bill like that, parties would have kamkunjis. But this time, I think it is only ODM which has had a kamkunji. The rest have not, and I even saw it yesterday, that we may push the voting to maybe another date.
Next week.
Because, yeah, the president is now very busy. But, you know, this should have even been done before, because everybody knew that we are going to have the conference this week. So if there was commitment, it would have been done much earlier.
And those are the undertones that I would like us to address, because when we look at the headlines, when we look at what they are saying, then definitely they're talking about whipping members and all that. But when we listen to, when you look at the body language, when you listen to some of the legislators, even off the records, there are some who will say it's definitely not going to pass. What really is the problem?
I think the problem is there's still a problem. I mean, Kenya still have a problem with women leadership and the space of women. We just talk about it, how democratic Kenya is, all inclusive, gender, the gender should be treated equally. But at the bottom line, I see that there is still a problem with Kenyans accepting women leadership.
Could it be that maybe the way it has been brought out in terms of our psyche is it's become a debate of men and against women, which should not be the case. It's really, we're talking about leadership.
Yeah, this is about leadership, it's about the constitution. And also another thing that worries me, if you look at the MCAs, there was, it was included that the nomination had to be there to beat this gender rule, and even in the Senate. But when you look at the National Assembly, I don't know what somebody did somewhere. Either somebody pulled it out because all along it was included, but the final draft, it was not there. Yeah, so it means that it is something that we look at women as women, and when we say gender equity or equality, we really don't mean it. We mean something else. So if you look at also the fact that there is the number in the Constitution, there must be a number of 349 members of National Assembly. And then now they will say that if we bring, if we pass this bill, so is it not going to go against the same constitution? So even as we do all these things, it means that they are waiting for us. There is a catch 22 somewhere. They are waiting and say, okay, now it is done, but don't you see it has gone against the constitution? And still we are saying that, I mean, whichever way, I don't see a lot of commitment, and somebody is playing some game that as women, I think we should also have our own kamkunji, in fact, the whole nation, so that we decide what we do with men. Because when it comes, yeah, we should
but think... that would now trivialize it to a war between women and men, and that would be a danger.
That's how they are looking at it. They are looking at it like that. They are not looking at it as a constitutional issue. They are looking at it as a men-women. So why can't we also just go men-women?
Betty, do you agree that maybe then the thing to do is use the women numbers? After all, women are more than men, you know, generally speaking.
For me, as a Kenyan and as a woman, and also as a woman leader in my own right, I like the conversations that are currently going on across the divide, not only in Parliament, but both sides need to listen to each other. And for me, I think we just need to create a clear understanding on what the term gender means. Gender does not mean women. Gender does not mean men. Gender means both men and women. And the current bill that is being talked about in Parliament, for now we need to bring the numbers up of female representation, because that is how it is in the Constitution. But remember, a time might come that the coin might flip, you know, in the future, that we might need to bring, have more men and women. But I see a danger in trivializing this conversation to make it a men versus women, like, you know, clash. That should not be. It should be that men should appreciate that there is need for female leadership and appreciate it, all right? And women should also accept and appreciate the fact that they need to work with the men together and fix whatever needs to be fixed in Parliament, so that we are operating in tandem with the Constitution. Allow me to just speak on a broader issue of this matter and just say that, look, Kenya is not alone in this. If you look at even the last G7 meeting in Canada, there were only 2 women represented there. And this is like the toppest level of meeting you can ever have in the world. So even at that level, participation and presence of women in leadership at that level is wanting. That just shows the reality, the global reality of the absence of women in especially political space. Women are sidelined in politics, truth be told. Women are sidelined in business, in corporate, and in summits. And Kenya is not an exception. Allow me to quote the Women Convention rights that says that 23% of all parliamentarians in the world are women. 23. And pegs a figure of 18% on women in the world who occupy ministerial level of positions. There's a problem globally, and this is not only a Kenyan conversation. This is a broad conversation. But for me, I'd like to look at what is the value add of having women on board. What is the value add? The value add, first and foremost, is we need to believe in female leadership, and here is why. If we have female leadership, what is going to happen is it's more likely to lead to positive social outcomes, all right, in terms of health, in terms of education, and so on. If you put a female leader, in a space where it's up to her to decide what happens in a political chaos, she is more likely to take the peace route rather than a confrontational and violence route. That is another truth. And if you come up with some deals in peace, they are likely to be sustained if women are around that table.
Okay,
right?
and most of those arguments sound very good to the ear, but when it comes to the ground, something just seems to happen. But I want us to listen to what some of our leaders have had to say in regards to the 2/3 gender bill, then look at some of the practical concerns that are there. But let's listen in to our leaders.
So not supporting this bill, not because I don't want women, but I will be opposing this bill. I will be asking my fellow members of parliament to oppose this bill because it doesn't provide a formula on how these 22 women are going to be nominated. We don't just have to fill the parliament by people, but we must fill parliament with the people who are going to add value to the lives of Kenyan people. We need people who are going to legislate and execute the role of the National Assembly and the role of the Senate in a very clear understanding, not these people who are nominated and again they come to serve the interests of a few individuals.
I want to take this opportunity to sincerely request our parliamentarians to make sure that when it comes to voting the gender bill next week, let them honor their commitment and pass this bill. This bill has been dragging for a very long time. In actual fact, Parliament has been sitting out of constitution because the gender bill has not been passed and should have conformed with the constitutional requirement.
And as a party, I want to ask all the Jubilee members of parliament to stand up to stand on the side of the historic moment to mainstream the participation of our daughters, of our wives, and of our mothers in the management of the affairs of our nation.
Ningependa kusi haswa viongozi wetu wa National Assembly. Najua wengine wanasema hii sijui itaongeza gharama, itafanya namna hii. Lakini ule mswada ulikuwa hapo awali umebadilishwa sasa. Na vile viti ambavyo tumeweka zimepunguka kulingana sasa na vile katiba yetu imetueleza. Na ningewasihi kwa heshima ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba kama taifa la Kenya we have heeded to what our constitution has said. Pitisheni huo mswada. wenzetu, haswa wajumbe, tafadhali tupitishe huu mswada, na ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba sheria zetu zinalingana na katiba yetu vile imesema.
All right, and that's what some of the leaders had to say in regards to the gender bill. Let me start with you, Honorable Alice Wahome. There's some genuine concerns that some have, and one of them was brought out there in that soundbite, where there is no clear formula as to once it has been passed, what are the nominations going to be? And they say that the best way to predict the future is to look at the history. And when we look at our political parties, we do have a problem with our nomination system and how people come into the place. So that's a genuine concern. How is that hurdle going to be jumped once we get there, if at all the bill is going to be passed?
Okay, you see, parliaments and assemblies are political institutions, so that you cannot never remove the hand of politics and political parties and leaderships of political parties in the play or from the play of the work of nominations. You know, nomination, even ourselves to be able to run into the seats that we have been elected, we have been nominated. And I can tell you that there is a lot of complaints and, you know, and influence and sometimes manipulation and activities around who will actually be elected or given the party's nomination certificate. So now, when it comes to women, just these particular nominations, and for now, we are talking about, as my sister Betty has said, women are the lesser numbers in terms of parliament. Then the numbers that we need to add up are for women. In future, it could be the numbers, they could be the men that shall have a deficit. So when you hear people like my colleague, Honorable Didymus, and I have had one-on-one with him thereafter, after this particular press conference that he called, and he has now told me he has changed his mind. Actually, what he said is a bit personal. He told me, look, your husband is my wife's doctor. So he said, no, that cannot be the consideration. But he's recognizing there is a role that women play. And I think that is what Betty and all of us are saying. Are you saying in a country where we have 51% women, then there is no equality, there is no inclusivity, there is no participation at equal levels, or at least at reasonable? Because even 1/3 that we are talking about, or 2/3 of either gender, is really not an equal or equity basis. It's sufficient participation in terms of moving forward, so that then women can have a fair platform to be able to show their talent, to ensure that you are not leaving one person behind. This company, the Standard Group, if the Standard Group has 100 people, and one morning the CEO decides only 40% or 60% will come to work, then obviously you have thrown away resources, and it will not work or deliver to the capacity, the full capacity that it is expected. So people like Didymus and others, I believe and I hope that they are changing their mind. And I don't believe that, because of course there is a lot of negativity, there is a lot of bile in the social media, and misinformation and misunderstanding. We are not having a debate about including women or both gender. That debate was completed during the constitution making process. We are discussing about the mechanism to make that happen, because Kenyans did say we had 48 laws that we were required as a parliament after the 2010 constitution to be registered. Only 47 have been cleared. This particular one has not been cleared. It means in terms of top leadership, in terms of Kenyans, there is disregard and disrespect for women.
Oh, okay, let me come to you.
But I could have added and said the numbers, the 21 members, honorable members that we are talking about, and he's talking about the concern of how do you bring them to parliament. And I said parties can never be ignored during this process, but it is the members of parliament that can register it, that can come up with the necessary law now after the constitution amendment, and say we will use this mechanism, this process. After the mechanism is in the constitution, we will revisit the Elections Act, and at that stage we can all debate
on how to
On
get
how
it done.
and how to get it
Because
done.
the other concern, Honorable Nyamunga, is the question of a bloated parliament. Because again, that is, I mean, we already have a very huge parliament, which the taxpayer is literally feeling the heavy burden. How do we overcome that? Because again, we are adding legislators, and these are nominated people. So there are those who feel that it's going to be too big.
Yeah, for me, I don't buy that, because Parliament takes only 1.5% of the 3 trillion. For example, this year we have 3 trillion in terms of our budget. So when you talk of the bloated wage bill, I don't think we are serious. In my view, I think that even if we added 20 people or 21, that should, in fact, it has been calculated to be about 60 million per month. Still, that compared to the budget of Kenya, still that is very negligible.
But that doesn't mean that we eat away from that budget without necessarily giving value, simply because it's a small percentage.
Yeah, now we have to compare that. That small budget, we have to compare with the value that we'll get from the women leadership.
Correct.
For example, I believe in women leadership. Even if you look at Kenya right now, the ministers that we have who are female, you can see how they are performing. You can see how CS Amina has tried in the education. I know there are other players that have come together to join, to put their effort together. But you can see that. You can see what Cecil is doing in the Ministry of Health.
And then the argument might be from some, since we already have those women leaders who are doing very well, they have gotten there through merit. Why not have everybody just get there through merit?
But this one also will be through merit, because nobody is going to pick a woman who is at home and then just give them a nomination. It has to be done.
There's no defined way of how those nominations are going to be done.
That is what my colleague, that is what she has just said, that once the bill passes, then we will legislate to make sure that we come up with a proper procedure of doing it, that we just don't go and pick anybody. We will pick women that are of substance, people who have been in politics, people who have a vision, people who have stood for something. So
shouldn't that then be already in place, so that those who feel that possibly there could be parties that may want to nominate their girlfriends or whoever, let's just say women who possibly don't deserve to be there, against those who deserve to be there?
You know, just maybe my sister is really clear on that. I should be clear that why should the problem of men, if they want to bring their girlfriends or their associates, become the problem of the women? You understand?
It will become a problem of the women. It will become a problem of the country. It will become a problem of the country, because then what do we do with...
Therefore, the country must know that the leadership that we are talking about cannot be said to be the best leadership. And here we are bringing a yardstick to say we are bringing women into leadership who are not up to speed. Look at the parliament itself. We are 290 elected. Out of that, we have 273 men. What yardstick have we put on the table to measure their performance vis-a-vis the women who have come from affirmative action? And you know, actually, if you sample out, you will find that we are all studying at par. You cannot say that men are delivering better than women.
Correct.
And so therefore, for me, it is really unfair. We don't have numbers, sufficient numbers, and the gender that has sufficient numbers is not being put to the same yardstick. Yes, so this is an unfair question. We don't like it, and we want to tell Kenyans, let's first have numbers of women so that then you can now start judging how they are performing. Because who is asking the question about these people who are going to be the ones nominated? They are leaders. Some of them are elected. Why would the Honorable Honorable Raila Odinga, why would the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta bring women through nomination if they are given that role, and all the other party leaders then bring women who are not up to speed, who are not qualified? Should that be the problem then of the women? You know, where are we placing this baby?
Betty, do you think then that is a genuine concern that people have? Because the question is, as much as we're not using the same yardstick, it would sound like we're putting the cart before the horse. Once we have these women, it's already constituted, and it's for them to be there. But the question is, how will the parties now nominate those women to make sure that they're qualified?
I think for me, questioning that the party leaders or whoever is responsible for nominating these women will bring their wives and daughters and slay queens. To me, that is a distraction of the core issue. The core issue is, can we be in tandem with our constitution? Can we pass this bill? Can we fix this only last bill that is left? Can we do all we can to put a level playing field for both men and women to engage, correctly on the table to push this country forward? An argument that, oh, we can't do it because he'll bring his slay queen. To me, that is neither here nor there. Parties have their own constitutions. They are institutions in their own right. At elections time, they also have their own manifestos to which they sell to Kenyans. They are fully aware that Kenyans are watching. And I'm thinking if the prescription will be arrived at, in Parliament, as the Waheshimiwas are saying today, let's give that process time. Let us allow them to do what they need to do and engage us all as Kenyans in that conversation so that we also bring in our input. But one thing I also want to say, Michael, is that listening to grassroots conversations, I want to just appeal to my fellow Kenyans to appreciate that this is not a war between men and women. No.
That needs to be clear.
That needs to be clear. Gender equality is not about women.
Yeah,
it is about inclusivity.
Yeah.
It's about, can both men and women sit round a table and converse about issues that they need to converse about from an equal,
Platform.
Playing field. And to me, 9th Parliament failed. 10th Parliament failed. 11th Parliament has a golden opportunity to create history in this country. Sorry, 12th Parliament, I beg your pardon, to create history. Just occupy this position and, plug into the global conversations on how women leadership can actually be
Absolutely, and we have African countries that obviously have done that. We have Rwanda, which have achieved that. In fact, they are up to almost 50%, which is
they are beyond.
Yeah, beyond
61.
60%.
Yes.
61. And of course, we cannot fault the women who are in Parliament. They're doing a good job. Now, we'll need to wind up. I'll need your parting shots. But let me start with you, Honorable Alice Wahome. If the bill doesn't go through, what next?
Okay, this is what I will say. That as women, the people who have, the proponents, we know there is always the people who have taken a major interest.
Opposers and the opposers.
Those who have taken a major interest in terms of moving this bill forward so that we can vote for it with the requisite numbers. We've done our best foot forward, and we have put this bill on the table of the people who should be held accountable by Kenyans. It is on the platform of members of Parliament who have the single privilege to either have it pass or not pass. Secondly, the people who should be held accountable further beyond Parliament are the political party leaderships across the board. And those are the people that Kenyans should hold accountable. Finally, we must be, as Kenyans, be very careful, because we cannot select which part of registrations, which areas of the Constitution we shall actually adhere to, implement, and now select these ones not to implement. That is actually not constitutional. It's not being faithful to the Constitution. Finally, you know what? We do also have a fear. In my view, we have court cases that have said this bill need to be finalized with. In fact, orders have already been given. The judges have given Parliament time. And I think parliamentarians have not wakened to the realization that actually the judiciary, through the High Court, then asking the Chief Justice to advise the President. Article 61 is very clear that if the Chief Justice is directed by the High Court to advise the President, then the way the Article 261 is captured or is crafted, he may not even have a choice, because it is in mandatory terms, advise the President. And if the President is then advised, then he can also decide to dissolve Parliament. Do we as a Parliament, not now even as a country, as Parliament, do we want to leave ourselves this is the begging question. Do we want to leave ourselves at the hands of the Chief Justice and the President? Because the final card would be by the two. Is that a comfortable position? And I'm asking my colleagues, do they feel comfortable moving forward when the court has already given a judgment? We have an order. What is remaining is enforcement of that order. Can you see that the balance can tilt? And you know, sometimes I'm sure there is a time when we also annoy the judiciary. We annoy as parliament. We have had our own running offs, also with the executive. You can decide to dissolve parliament, and it has been done before.
So that's a risk that stands
That
there.
is a risk.
All right, Rose?
Yeah, in my view, if this bill fails, it will be a failure on the government. Because if 47 bills have gone through, and laws have gone through, and it is only this one of the women.
Contentious.
Yeah, that is being contentious, and it is touching on the women. And now we want to bring so many issues to sanitize it and to say why it is failing. We want to say, oh, the parties will bring the girlfriends. And we want to bring everything and anything to make sure that it doesn't. It will be a failure on the government, and it will be a failure on the leadership, because for us, we have lobbied everybody that we thought we should have lobbied. We have lobbied our male counterparts. We have lobbied everybody. And even in the Senate, you can see that most of the time, if you can be watching the proceedings in the Senate, it is the women that remain in that house most of the time. And I'm not saying the men are not doing enough, but if you look at the participation and the commitment that we have, even in the committees, it is the women. And even in our families and our homes, people who run the show. And I think even you...
And maybe that's where now men are getting scared, because now when they hear the women are the ones...
We are doing it, but we are doing it well. When we are in the parliament, we do it for the sake of Kenyans.
But we must admit that sometimes men also have that, maybe they feel threatened.
Oh, yeah,
I
think
it would be unfortunate if they are the heads and they want to feel threatened. That it means that position is also threatened that they were given. So in my view, I think it will stop with the president. I have seen where the president is committed, how he lobbies to make sure, and even other party leaders. We have seen that before.
You directly put it to the government.
Oh,
yes,
they are the ones
any
accountable.
consequence can, yes.
Yeah,
And
not the women.
Stop someone.
Not the women. The buck stops with them.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Betty?
For me, I would just appeal to our parliamentarians to pass this bill. This is a good bill, all right? And this is a bill that will make us to operate in tandem with our constitution. Time has come for us as a people to invest in gender equality and gender parity. And just appreciate that this is not a war between men and women, and men should not be threatened at all with this bill. This is a bill that if it is good for women, it is good for men as well, and it is good for everybody. Kenyans are watching you, and please do not fail Kenyans. Do not fail your women. Please go ahead and pass this bill. Time has come for women to be heard. Time has come for us as a people to appreciate female leadership because it matters. Time has come for us to occupy this powerful historical moment that we have in our hands to do the right thing in the name of Kenyans.
All right, thank you very much. Ladies,
so finally, let's just appeal to our male counterparts
to give us the vote.
To give us the vote. We are really looking forward to that, and we've done our best. And if we get that opportunity, women will be the best leaders.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is an outcry regarding the crackdown on border motorbike operators, and they are completely being harassed by the police. They are being asked to give money right, left, center, and I think the regulations that are being used right now by the police are those ones that the Michuki rules. Some of those have not been brought to Parliament and are not completely in tandem with the law. And it's unfortunate because this really, we need job creation. And because of that, the police have detained the Honorable John Paul,